Welcome to the show. This week's FailRace versus community is Subaru Imprezas versus Mitsubishi Evos in A-Class. The first race is at the Catalunya Grand Prix circuit. I haven't raced at the full circuit for quite a while, though these being A-Class cars, thought it would be fairly interesting. These are a little bit faster, so the laps aren't too long. As we run into the first corner, I outbraked myself a little bit in the blue Evo. Husky outbraked himself a little bit as well in the Subaru that we're following at the moment, and I ended up off the track. I was going pretty wide on my own on that one, and a little tap from Husky put me on the dirt. I didn't have the best of starts. Daniel's actually also taken part in this one. He is currently in the lead. I believe it's 3 wide as we go into the sort of the 3rd or 4th corner, depending on how you count that first section. 3 wide in there is pretty scary. I was following that. I'm amazed they all got away with just a minor bump. It's very rare you see that many cars go into a corner and there not be a big problem. I then end up on the grass, dirt, over there. I didn't have the best of starts to this race, if I'm honest, while the rest of the field filed through in a fairly orderly fashion. At this point, everybody runs wide through the same corner, and they head up towards the top of the hill for the first time. Unfortunately, this replay was a little bit laggy. I can't really show you much of what was going on at the start because a lot of it was lagging all over the place. Yeah, it seems to be more common at the moment. We're having a bit of lag problems. It did sort itself out on the most part later on. At the front, Daniel was leading from another Evo 6, and they had pulled, I think this is on lap 2 perhaps, and they had pulled a massive margin already over the rest of the field. These guys were miles ahead at the front. It does help though that 3rd place was rather highly contested, although these guys are fighting quite a lot over the lead. The Evo 6 was really struggling to find a way past. I'm not sure quite how bad the lag was on that guy's screen as they go too wide at the top of the hill. That's not a clever thing to do. It's very, very rare you see cars get away with going too wide. It's also very rare to see an endo going on. It's also very rare for the car on the outside to get away without losing a position or multiple positions. If you end up sort of that wide at the top of the hill, you normally are going to be slower. You're going to have to sort of slow down, brake, perhaps lift off at least to avoid going out on the grass. It's a testament to how much grip Daniel's car must have had to manage to stay around the outside there. And these two continue battling, and Daniel continues defending for most of the race, to be honest. This is the argument over 3rd position that went on again for pretty much all of the race. Husky was currently leading the group from an Evo 6 that was very, very good through the corners. Behind them was a red and white Impreza that was very, very fast in a straight line. Probably the fastest car here at a straight line. Yeah, as you will see, you saw how far back the Impreza was as they came around the final corner, and now it's moved up a position as they sort of hit the braking zone for the first corner. Of course, the Impreza doesn't quite have the grip through the corners, and sure enough, the Evo 6 goes past around the outside. That's a pretty tough maneuver to do on the outside of that first corner. Catalunya can be a fairly tricky place to overtake at times, and yeah, to stay around the outside of that first corner is a tough thing to do. In the background, you'll see the red and white Impreza. It does struggle a little bit through the corners. The 22B is now on the inside. However, it's that acceleration that makes the Impreza rather hard to overtake. At the front, Husky is having a little bit of lag. Again, sorry about that. Can't do a huge amount about that. Runs wide, then all the 2 of the cars behind him run wide as well, though not quite as much. And as they run towards the hill, Husky is having to go very, very defensive from the Evo that gets brave and goes around the outside of the first sort of section up the hill and then is on the inside for the next bit. For me, that's overtaking the evening. Keeping your car around there is really very, very tough. Again, it's another testament to how much grip this Evo 6 must have to keep your car there and keep your foot in. With Husky ending up a little bit wide at the top of the hill, he loses 2 places as the red and white Impreza goes past, and then is instantly under pressure from the other blue 22B, which from a distance is very hard to tell them apart as the rounds are sort of coming towards the final section of the track, and the Evo has got the 3rd position, although it is probably not going to keep it by the time they get to the straights. This final section, though, very, very twisty, is a bit of a deceptive section as Husky and the other Subaru go side by side. You kind of think that you might be able to get an overtake done there. The problem is it's sort of all really very narrow. There's only really one line you can get through there, and you can't really do much else about it. These guys, as I said, battled for most of the race over first position. Unfortunately, a lot of it is very laggy. Daniel did a very good job of fending off the Evo 6 throughout pretty much the entire race on this one. As they round the final corner, the Evo 6 just ran out of opportunities to get past. Probably wasn't helped by Daniel's car jumping around a little bit. I'm also not sure why Daniel's car is smoking. I have no idea. That's that's the laggy replay for you. And then the AI have a bump and there's a little bit of fly, and I don't really know anymore. Third place was still being argued over, and as I said, yeah, this went on for pretty much the entire 5-lap race. As they come across the top of the hill, it is the Impreza that runs a little bit wide. You can get away with it at the moment and keep the position into the next corner because of that huge speed. However, it does mean the Evo 6 is rather close as they run into the final section, which is the Evo 6's strong point. The 22B is also not very far behind them as Husky runs a little bit wide. Sure enough, the Evo 6 gets his car on the inside for the corner before this, and then has so much grip he can cut across from the outside. Another very good overtake. This Evo 6 could have had any of 3 overtakes as overtake of the evening. However, it's not all done yet. While it looks like he has got a fairly sensible margin back to the cars behind him, we've seen how fast that Impreza is as they come on to the front straight. The 22B is also no slouch in a straight line, and as they run down across the start-finish line, it's very close. It is incredibly close between the pair of them. I got the photo for a sort of a photo finishly thing. Yeah, that's not very far between them, especially when you consider the speeds involved. They're probably, I don't know, 120 perhaps, as they're coming across the line, the Impreza being the quicker of the two. Had that finish line been, what, 10 metres further down the line, and the Impreza would have got it. As it happens, it was a 1-2-3 for the Evos in that race. On any normal circumstances, that would be the closest finish in this race. As it turns out, it wasn't. This is, I'm not even sure what position this is for, 12th perhaps, or 11th or something like that, between two Subarus. As they run down the start-finish straight, they too have a fairly similar story, with the orange 22B being the quicker car. That's even closer. That's ridiculously close. That start line was maybe 1 or 2 metres further down the road, and the orange Impreza would have got it. Probably one of the closest finishes I've seen on here. That really is a ridiculously close finish between them two cars. We move on to our second race at the Silverstone Grand Prix circuit, another track that we haven't driven for a while. Tend to avoid the longer circuits with the slower cars, and since these were A-class vehicles, I thought I'd try some of the longer circuits out again. Me and Husky run a little bit wide. I got my paint job loaded this time. I'm driving the red Toy Mackinnon Evo. Daniel had a bit of a laggy incident, I think, with a black and pink Impreza. That's why you saw both of them off sort of on the grass on the opening corner. I get brave and try and go around the outside of a yellow Impreza. Doesn't work. The Ken Block Impreza holds it around the outside for one part of the Maggotts and Beckett's complexy thing, and then the grey Impreza ends up going for a fly on the infield. Yeah, ignore that again. Not particularly important. Husky's car, while it was fairly good through the corners, did struggle with the straight line speed, and sure enough, the yellow Impreza goes flying past him, and I wasn't far behind. It was certainly interesting to see how the different cars fared, or how the different builds for cars fared. This is, again, still on the first lap at the back. Things were very, very tightly packed in, and the blue Evo gets a double overtake through. There's my favourite overtaking spot at a Silverstone. He can't quite get it stopped though. Gets a little bit of a nudge from the police, ends up on the outside of the 22B. However, if you have enough grip and you can keep your car around the outside there, you will end up on the inside for the final corner, and sure enough, the Evo can hold that position and gets the move done. Further back, the police Evo was also having a look at the inside, can't quite do it. There's an Evo 6 in there as well that's looking around the outside, maybe not quite, as they run down the start-finish straight. The police car is going on the attack. As this odd thing to say, I will admit, as they go into the first corner, dives up the inside of the 22B, runs a little bit wide, and the Subaru kind of gets a cutback on him. At the front, and things were fairly close again. This time it was the Evo that had the more grip, while the Impreza was not massively faster in a straight line, but it was noticeably faster in a straight line. And this proved a little bit of a problem for the Evo, as the Subaru was just too quick for him, and it was still fairly good through the corners. The Evo's going very, very defensive at the top, sort of the top of the course. However, there's only so much he can do as they run on towards the back straight. The Impreza gets a much better drive out of this corner. Combine that with a better straight line speed, better acceleration, and sure enough, the Impreza fires up alongside and gets the move done before they ever reach the corner. However, it's not all done. The Impreza does actually run a little bit wide, ends up compromising the Evo slightly for the next part of the corner. Husky's now all of a sudden got involved, finds himself on the inside as they go through bridge. Another corner where you don't really want to be going too wide through there that often. They get away with it. Very good overtake from Husky there. However, can't get his car stopped for the next corner, runs a little bit wide. Again, this time Husky finds himself on the outside. And as I said, with the blue Evo, if he can keep it around there, if he has enough grip to do that, he might get up the inside for the next corner. Fortunately for him, while he couldn't stay around the outside, the Evo ended up just running out of grip, ran a little bit wide, tried to carry a bit too much speed, yeah, Husky could slide up the inside of the final corner. Then comes the very, very fast Subaru, which gets the move done almost before they reach the first corner. Then there's me also lining up behind with another very, very fast straight line speed car, and then there's Daniel, who's caught up to all of us with a much, much better handling car. However, we're now coming up to the Magnus and Beckett section. The yellow Impreza you saw fly past was very much like my car, I would imagine. Struggled a little bit through this section, just with not quite as good handling. You can see how much the Evo's caught up. Is actually having a look at the inside. Unlikely to get a pass done through there. We then tried to go 3 wide onto the back straight, which is never a clever idea. Daniel eventually gave up on that one, and I go soaring past with my much better straight line speed. I think this is a lap later or whatever. Husky had ended up throwing it off the track, outbraked himself slightly somewhere, which had allowed all of us to catch back up to him. I managed to find a gap that really shouldn't have existed, and that's Husky was sort of starting to drift back to normal racing line. Didn't realise how much speed I had, and I fitted through pretty much a perfectly sized Evo gap. I'm not sure quite how I got that one to work. However, having got past these guys, I now had 3 handling cars right behind me as we come into a tight and twisty section, which is not so good for my Evo 6. I am trying my best. There's a little bit of lag going on there. I'm trying my best to sort of defend and hold these guys off. However, I was struggling through these corners. You can see they're lining up behind me. Husky's trying to get on the inside. I just cannot put the power down. I got too much understeer, and Husky can get alongside and go past with a much better exit. Daniel's hovering in the background, waiting for a chance to pounce. I tried to find another little gap that existed very, very briefly, and then quickly closed. There's some fighting going on at the front as well. I tried to go around the outside of Husky, can't quite fit through that. I don't know why I tried, as it was unlikely I'd go around the outside of a car that's better than mine through the corners. Daniel then goes up the inside. We briefly thought about going 3 wide into Magnus and Beckett. You can't do that. I wisely backed out of that one. I've seen cars go 2 wide. I've never seen people get successfully 3 wide through there, especially not when one of them's driving an understeery Evo. So yeah, I wasn't going to try that one. And we run onto the back straight. However, I am fairly close to the back of Daniel's car, and sure enough, I can employ all of the power, and I can get past him without too many problems. As I said, at the front there was a little bit of a squabble going on for the lead between the very fast 22B in a straight line. This is probably one of the fastest cars we had all evening in a straight line. Quicker than my car, I couldn't keep up with it. And yeah, it was incredibly fast. The problem was the Impreza that it was racing, the hatchback Impreza, was also pretty damn quick in a straight line. Not as fast, however, it also wasn't as slow as most of the handling cars that were here. However, the Impreza was also very, very good through the corners. And over the course of the lap, the 22B just couldn't really do enough. There's all sorts of arguments still going on behind. The 22B just couldn't quite do enough to really challenge him. Further back, I was actually quite surprised when I was flicking through the replay. Normally, sort of the field ends up fairly spread out over the course of these races. There'll sort of be groups of perhaps 2 or 3 cars arguing over a position at best. There was I think this is 5, 6, I'm not sure. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. There we go. I can count. 5 cars. All, I think it's 10th places at the front of this little train, all arguing over a position, which is always good to see. It's always nice to see that there's plenty of battling going on. Doesn't matter what position you're in. There's some more. I don't know what is going on with the weird ghost lights? Does anybody know what causes them? There's more going on here today. The battle for third, as normal, as normal for this session anyway, was raging on. Yet again, there were 4 cars in contention for the third place. So we go on to the, I think this is on to the final lap now. Daniel had a fairly large margin over me. I think it's 85-foot lead over me as we run onto the back straight, which is overcome by my by the sheer power of my car. I draw up alongside him as we come to the end of the straight. I tried to get my car stopped. I was understeering. I really could not have broken any later than that and stayed on the road. Husky ended up going a little bit wide. And again, I can use that acceleration as we head up towards the next corner, keep my car on the inside and defend rather heavily through here. I know that even if I get a slightly poor line out of here, Daniel's got a better exit. It doesn't matter too much as I have so much more acceleration than he does as we run onto the back straight. You'll see by the time we get to the braking zone, I've pulled out a sizable margin despite having a fairly scruffy sort of top section because I was all out of position trying to defend. At the front though, things I wouldn't have said were massively simple for the hatchback Impreza. The 22B was there, it was around, it just didn't quite have the handling to keep up. Had plenty of the speed, not quite enough of the handling around here, and the hatchback Impreza was going to take the win. It was going to be a 1-2 for the Subarus this time around as we go for a little bit of a slide towards the finish, and there we go. The Subarus are across the line. Further back, yeah, we continued arguing, and Daniel threw everything he could at the back of my Evo through this final section. However, even if he could get a better drive out of this final corner, which he did, there was nothing he could do about the sort of the straight line speed of my car. In all his arguing over the position, however, he had not got quite as good a drive as the car behind, which very nearly beat him on the line. Again, another very, very close finish between these two. Yeah, and in the end it actually was Evos 3, 4 and 5 I think in that race with Husky back in 6th. There was to be a 4th photo finish in 2 races. That's a record definitely for us. I'm not even sure what position this is over between 2 Imprezas that have another very, very close finish. The red hatchback much faster in a straight line than the 22B. That's definitely a record. I've never seen so many close finishes in a versus the community. We move on to the 3rd and final race. I realised we hadn't done any Japanese tracks despite using all Japanese cars. So it was to Suzuka. Again, another place we very rarely drive around. You haven't used Suzuka that much at all, I don't think. The first corner here can cause problems. While it's not sort of a massive hairpin corner, this one, it is very, very fast. Very, very little braking involved in that first corner. And there was a few bumps. A few cars were off. Not as bad as it could have been. Not bad as it has been through there. Daniel, just to confuse us all, changed liveries and was now driving a Chem Block style Evo. Yeah, I don't know why. I don't even know how he changed the livery so quickly on these cars. He now finds himself trying to go around the outside of another Evo. There's a Subaru tucked in behind them as well. This is an impressive place to try to go around the outside. Long corner this one. Again, you can see the grip that Daniel's Evo has. However, this next section, he just sort of takes a too shallow a line, can't get stopped, ends up out on the grass. I don't like those 2 corners particularly. I can never drive them very well. However, Daniel keeps his foot in and stays on the outside, which will put him on the inside when they come up to the hairpin. One of the better overtaking spots here at Suzuka. However, he outbrakes himself a little bit. The red Evo does a cutback. Daniel then does a cutback on the exit. I don't know what you call that. A double cutback? Sure. And finds himself back up into what I think is 3rd position. There's some squabbling going on further back as well. Then it's the drag race down this sort of back straight-ish kind of thing going on, in which Daniel's car is actually faster than something. The red Evo must have been running a lot of downforce or a lot of grip parts, or I don't know what it had. It wasn't very quick in a straight line. Fairly good through the corners though. Again, it's having a look, seeing if it can get up the inside, but can't really do very much. This race wasn't quite as exciting as the previous 2. Yeah, it did get spread out quite a lot more than the previous ones. There was still some good racing going on as we come into the first corner. Another Evo 6 that was very, very fast in a straight line goes up the inside of a Subaru. Subaru is looking, kind of trying to go around the outside. A bit unlikely in that first corner. It's, yeah, very, very fast. In the foreground, I don't know if that's quite the right use of that word, Husky was going side by side with somebody else as the Evo just runs a little bit wide. The Impreza gets back past him again. There's some more squabbling going on further back in this. I think this is lap 2 or something. In the end, the white Impreza managed to get its position back. Didn't take very long for Daniel to catch up to me. My car was not too bad around here, it just was no match for the handling Evo. As we come into the hairpin, I tried going on the inside, I just couldn't get my car stopped enough to really get that move done. However, we are on to a straight line speed section of the track, which my car was much more suited to. I didn't really want to go around the outside of Spoon. I don't really like the corner at the best of times. Luckily, I managed to get just enough in front to cut to the inside to try and defend. Couldn't get my car stopped. Ended up running a little bit wide. Daniel's on the inside for the next corner. I can't really do much about that. However, it is now another long straight, which is where my car comes into its own. And sure enough, despite a fairly poor run off that corner, I may well have been on the grass a little bit. You can see, look at how much of a gap I've got already before we even get to 130R. Once we go through here, of course, Daniel's going to close up onto the back of me. I actually understeer a little bit too wide and end up all out of position as we come into the final chicane. Go very, very defensive. So defensive I wasn't even on the screen. And still defensive through the next part of the chicane. However, I know Daniel really cannot do very much about it. If I stay going defensive, there is not a lot he can do, as I've got so much speed in between the corners, and Suzuka has quite a lot of fairly long straights, and I can pull out a rather large margin. At least that was the plan. Unfortunately, like with all of these things, if I'm relying on going defensive, I have to not make mistakes. And I made a mistake almost instantly, just outbrake myself a little bit into the first corner, and sure enough, Daniel is past, and yeah, I'm not going to be able to do very much about that. This race was fairly quiet for the most part. I think this is I can't remember, 5th place, 6th place. This little group was probably the most interesting of the lot. I believe is that the unicorn Impreza, the S204, S4, I don't know. It's S and some numbers. Goes up the inside of a normal Impreza. He tries very bravely to go around the outside of the first two corners. Ends up just slightly off the track there. Didn't quite work as well as it did with the Evo 6. Yeah, it was a little bit of a quieter race, this one. I did find this little scrap going on. 13th position, I think, is what this is all over, between two 22Bs and an Evo 6. The lead 22B is going very, very defensive. The Evo 6 found himself a little bit boxed in there. Almost got past, or the car behind almost got past the pair of them. In the end, the lead 22B fell off the road, allowing the Evo 6 and the other Subaru to get past. This little group closed up an awful lot on the final lap, I think it is. And yeah, it was certainly the most exciting thing going on. This was a pretty spread out race. Suzuka is also not the easiest of tracks when it comes to overtaking. You've only got really two good positions. The grey Imprezas on the grass, that's a new place. As we fly through this next, you can't really do much overtaking through here. Very, very fast corners. You have to kind of try and position yourself for the next overtaking chance, which is the hairpin, pretty much, and then you haven't really got many other opportunities until the final corner. You may get a pass done at Spoon, but that's a iffy place to do an overtake. Again, not much braking into Spoon. You have, of course, if you've got a lot of straight line speed, you can use that to your advantage on this back section. That's where most of the overtaking was coming from, just simply out-dragging the car that you were racing with. These lot were fairly even. I think the white Impreza was probably the best through the corner, slowest in the straight, and the grey Impreza was the fastest in a straight line, but not by much over the Evo 6. Fortunately, a little bit of a coming together between these lots. Grey Impreza on the inside. I don't know if the Evo actually knew he was there. It was yeah, it's one of those things, unfortunately. You can lose sight of a car that you're racing with, and a corner like that, he tried his luck, he didn't quite come off. The white Impreza almost managed to profit from it, but couldn't quite. The grey car just too fast in a straight line. At the front, though, and it was another of the unicorn Imprezas that was going to take the win. This guy started on pole, vanished at the front, and yeah, was quite a long way in the lead. I held up Daniel for a lap or so. Daniel was marginally quicker and was starting to close the gap, just ran out of laps. You can see Daniel there in the background. I was quite a lot further back in third, and Husky was further back in fourth. Yeah, Daniel was beginning to catch towards the end of the race, but it wasn't by enough anyway in a fairly short race as this one is. And yeah, it wasn't to be a photo finish this time. And it was Daniel's cars go straight to the back of the leader. It was to be a Subaru victory, Evo second and third, Subaru in fourth, I believe, of Huskies. Anyway, that is it for this FailRace versus Community. It was good fun. There was a lot of exciting racing going on in the first couple of rounds. I struggled at Catalunya, did much better at Silverstone, and had a very lonely race at Suzuka, although quite a lot of people had a lonely race at Suzuka. It was still good fun, though. It was still good racing for A-class cars. The next FailRace versus the community is going to be held on the 6th of March. It will start at 7 PM GMT time, and we are going to go back to Forza 5. We are going to be racing C-Class C-Class American cars. Lots of muscle cars, hopefully, but you can use other vehicles as well. Yeah, we're going to give it a go on Forza 5 again, see how things go. Let's hope that all of the lobby chat is working again. And yeah, we're going to try again on Forza 5. However, that is it for this week. Oh, if you want to sign up for that as well, you can go to our forums. It is in the FailRace versus the community section. There'll be a sign up in there, and there will be a link in the descriptions to find the forums. However, that is it for today. So thank you very much for watching, and until next time, goodbye.